17-year-old Maya Chun never imagined that a mop bucket and a black belt would collide in the most humiliating hallway of Jefferson Valley High School. What started as another day of invisible torment was about to become the moment that changed everything, not just for Maya, but for the 3 students who thought they owned the school. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Maya's alarm buzzed at 5:30 a.m., same as every morning for the past 2 years. While most teenagers at Jefferson Valley High were still buried under their covers, Maya was already pulling on her worn jeans and faded green hoodie. The hoodie had a small tear near the left shoulder, a reminder of an incident 3 months ago that she preferred not to think about. She grabbed her backpack, checking to make sure her taekwondo uniform was still tucked safely at the bottom, hidden beneath textbooks and notebooks. Master Kim's dojang was the one place where Maya felt like herself, but school was a different universe entirely. At school, she was the scholarship kid from Riverside Apartments, the girl whose mom worked double shifts at the medical center just to keep them afloat. The bus ride to school was always the same routine. Maya claimed the 3rd seat from the front on the right side, close enough to the driver to avoid most trouble, far enough back to not look desperate. She kept her earbuds in, even when her phone was dead, just to avoid unwanted conversations. Jefferson Valley High School sat on a hill overlooking the affluent side of town, its red brick facade and pristine landscaping a stark contrast to the apartment complex where Maya lived. As she walked through the main entrance, she could already feel the familiar weight of invisible eyes tracking her movement. The morning crowd was thick with designer backpacks, expensive sneakers, and the kind of casual confidence that only came with never having to worry about money. Maya's first class was a P chemistry with Mrs. Rodriguez. She loved the subject. There was something comforting about the predictability of chemical reactions, the way elements behaved according to fixed rules. Unlike people, atoms never surprised you with cruelty. She was carefully taking notes on molecular bonding when the classroom door opened. In walked Brittany Walsh, flanked by her 2 constant companions, Tyler Morrison and Jessica Kane. The trio commanded attention without even trying. Brittany with her perfectly straightened blonde hair and designer everything. Tyler with his varsity jacket and smirk that suggested he found the whole world amusing. And Jessica, whose social media following had made her a minor celebrity among their classmates. Brittany's eyes swept the room before landing on Maya. That look, Maya knew it well. It was the same expression a cat might give a mouse just before pouncing. "Sorry we're late, Mrs. Rodriguez," Brittany said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Student council meeting ran over. Mrs. Rodriguez barely looked up from her periodic table chart. "Take your seats. We're discussing ionic bonds." The 3 found seats in the back row, directly behind Maya. She tried to focus on her notes, but she could feel their presence like a storm cloud gathering overhead. "Nice hoodie," Jessica whispered, just loud enough for Maya to hear. "Very vintage," Tyler snickered. "Think she got it from the donation bin outside church?" Maya's pencil grip tightened, but she kept writing. "Chemical bonds. Electrons sharing or transferring. Simple. Predictable. The rest of chemistry passed without incident, but Maya knew better than to think it was over. These 3 had perfected the art of psychological warfare, and they never left a target alone for long. Her next class was American literature with Mr. Patterson. Maya actually enjoyed the discussions about symbolism and character development. But today's lesson on social class in The Great Gatsby felt uncomfortably relevant. Fitzgerald was critiquing the rigid class structure of the 1920s. Mr. Patterson explained, pacing in front of the whiteboard. The idea that no matter how much money Gatsby acquired, he could never truly belong to the old money elite. Maya found herself thinking about her own situation. No matter how good her grades were, how hard she studied, She would always be the girl from Riverside Apartments. The scholarship kid who didn't belong. After literature came her least favorite period of the day, lunch. The cafeteria was a social minefield where invisible but impenetrable boundaries separated different groups. Maya usually bought a small salad and found an empty table near the windows, where she could eat quickly and escape to the library. But today, as she carried her tray across the crowded room, she noticed Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica occupying their usual prime real estate table in the center of the cafeteria. Brittany was holding court, telling some story that had Jessica laughing and Tyler nodding appreciatively. Maya was almost to her usual refuge when Tyler's voice cut through the cafeteria noise. "Hey, scholarship girl." The words carried across the room, causing several nearby conversations to pause. Maya kept walking, pretending she hadn't heard. "Maya!" Brittany called out, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Come over here for a second." Maya stopped. She could feel dozens of eyes turning toward her. The smart move would be to ignore them and keep walking. But something in Brittany's tone suggested that would only make things worse later. She turned around and walked over to their table, her lunch tray feeling suddenly heavy in her hands. "What's up?" Maya said, trying to keep her voice neutral. Brittany smiled that predatory smile again. "We were just talking about the spring formal next month. It's going to be amazing. They're holding it at the Grandview Country Club this year." Maya said nothing. She knew where this was going. "The tickets are only $200 each," Jessica chimed in. "Plus the dress, shoes, hair, makeup. Probably another $300 or $400 minimum. Probably more if you want to look decent." Tyler added with a laugh. Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks. "Okay, well, I should get going." "Oh, but we haven't even gotten to the best part," Brittany said, standing up. "See, we were thinking that maybe you could help out with the formal. You know, earn a little money for yourself." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. Brittany's smile widened. "Well, someone needs to make sure the bathrooms stay clean during the dance. It's honest work, and you seem like you'd be good at that sort of thing." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. Around them, she could hear whispers and nervous laughter from nearby tables. Someone had their phone out, probably recording. "Think about it," Tyler said, leaning back in his chair. "You could make enough in one night to buy a decent outfit. Maybe even afford a ticket to next year's formal." Maya stood there for a moment, her tray trembling slightly in her hands. She thought about all the hours she'd spent training at Master Kim's dojang, all the discipline and control she'd learned. She thought about her mother, working those double shifts to give Maya opportunities she'd never had. But mostly she thought about the rage building in her chest like a chemical reaction about to reach its explosive point. "I'll think about it," Maya said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "Excellent." Brittany clapped her hands together. "We'll talk more about the details later." Maya turned and walked away, the whispers following her like shadows. She dumped her untouched lunch in the trash and headed for the library, where she could hide among the stacks until the next bell rang. What Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya Chun had been training in Taekwondo for 8 years. She'd earned her black belt just 6 months ago, and Master Kim had recently started talking about competition teams and advanced techniques. They saw a quiet girl in a torn hoodie. They had no idea they were looking at someone who could break boards with her bare hands and execute kicks that could drop a grown man. But Maya had always kept that part of her life separate from school. The dojang was her sanctuary, a place where respect is earned through discipline and skill, not bank accounts and designer labels. As she sat in the library, staring at an open textbook without seeing the words, Maya made a decision. She was tired of being invisible, tired of being treated like she was worth less because she had less. What happened next would depend entirely on how far Brittany and her friends were willing to push, and something told Maya she was about to find out the rest. Of the week passed in an uncomfortable blur of sideways glances and whispered conversations. Maya noticed how quickly news traveled at Jefferson Valley High. By Thursday, half the school seemed to know about the cafeteria incident. Some students looked at her with pity, others with curiosity, and a few with the kind of cruel amusement that fed off other people's humiliation. Maya threw herself into her training at Master Kim's Dojang with renewed intensity. Every punch, every kick carried the weight of her frustration. Master Kim, a soft-spoken man in his 50s who had immigrated from South Korea 20 years earlier, noticed the change immediately. "Your technique is sharp today," he observed. After Maya finished a particularly aggressive combination on the heavy bag. "But your mind is elsewhere." Maya unwrapped her hands, avoiding his perceptive gaze. "Just focused, Master Kim." "Focus comes from clarity, not anger," he said gently. "Anger makes us sloppy. It makes us vulnerable." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maya nodded, but inside she wasn't sure she agreed. Right now, anger felt like the only thing keeping her upright. Friday afternoon brought an unexpected development. Maya was at her locker, switching out books for the weekend, when she felt someone approach from behind. She turned to find Derek Hutchinson, the student body president, and generally one of the more decent people at Jefferson Valley. "Hey Maya," Derek said, his expression serious. "Can we talk for a minute?" Maya glanced around nervously. Derek was popular, but he wasn't part of Brittany's crowd. Still, public conversations have become dangerous territory for her lately. "What's up?" she asked, closing her locker. "I heard about what happened in the cafeteria this week," Derek said, lowering his voice. "Look, I want you to know that not everyone thinks that was okay." Maya felt a flicker of surprise. "Okay. The thing is," Derek continued, "I'm on the formal planning committee, and I found out that Brittany actually went to Principal Martinez. She told him that you volunteered to help with bathroom maintenance during the dance." Maya's stomach dropped. "She what?" "Martinez thought it was a great initiative. He's planning to announce it at Monday's assembly, highlighting student volunteerism and all that." Derek ran a hand through his hair. "I thought you should know what's coming." The world seemed to tilt slightly. Maya gripped her backpack straps tighter. "Did you tell him it wasn't true?" "I tried to suggest that maybe there was some miscommunication, but Brittany had already given him some story about how excited you were to contribute to the school community." Derek looked genuinely apologetic. "I'm really sorry, Maya. This whole thing is messed up." Maya stared at the floor, processing this new information. Being humiliated in the cafeteria was one thing, but having it become official school business was something else entirely. The announcement would cement her status as the girl who cleaned toilets while her classmates danced. "Thanks for telling me," she managed to say. Derek hesitated. "Look, if you want to fight this, I could help. We could go to Martinez together, explain what really happened." Maya considered this for a moment. It was tempting, but she could already imagine how it would play out. Her word against Brittany's, the scholarship kid against the daughter of the town's most prominent family. She'd seen how these battles ended. "I appreciate it, Derek, but I'll handle it." Derek looked like he wanted to say more, but something in Maya's expression stopped him. "Okay, but if you change your mind, I won't." That weekend Maya found herself unable to concentrate on anything. Her mother, Rachel, noticed her distraction during their usual Saturday morning grocery run to the discount store on the other side of town. "You've been quiet lately," Rachel observed as they compared prices on pasta sauce. "Everything okay at school?" Maya loaded the cheaper brand into their cart. "Just the usual stuff." Rachel studied her daughter's face. Despite working constantly, she'd always been good at reading Maya's moods. The usual stuff doesn't usually make you look like you want to punch something. Maya almost smiled at that. Her mother didn't know about the taekwondo training. Maya had convinced her it was a study group that met at the community center. Rachel worried enough about money without adding martial arts fees to her concerns. "It's nothing I can't handle, Mom." Rachel placed a gentle hand on Maya's shoulder. "You know, when I was your age, I thought I had to handle everything by myself too. Took me years to learn that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is ask for help." Maya nodded, but deep down she knew this wasn't something her mother could fix. This was something she had to face on her own terms. Monday morning arrived with gray skies that matched Maya's mood. She'd spent the weekend going back and forth between different plans, confronting Brittany directly, going to Principal Martinez herself, or simply accepting the situation and trying to minimize the damage. But as she walked through the halls of Jefferson Valley High, she realized she'd made her decision. She was tired of being pushed around, tired of being treated like she was disposable. The morning assembly was held in the main auditorium, a cavernous space with uncomfortable metal chairs and acoustics that made everything echo. Maya found a seat in the back, hoping to remain invisible for just a little while longer. Principal Martinez took the stage with his usual enthusiasm. He was a well-meaning man in his early 60s who genuinely cared about the students, but he had a blind spot when it came to the social dynamics that ruled teenage life. "Good morning, Jefferson Valley Hawks," he began, his voice booming through the sound system. "I want to start today by highlighting some of the amazing volunteer spirit we're seeing from our students." Maya's heart began to race. "As you know, our spring formal is just 3 weeks away, and it takes a tremendous amount of work to make these events successful. I'm particularly impressed by one student who stepped forward to take on some of the less glamorous but essential tasks." Maya could feel eyes turning toward her from all directions. Word had clearly gotten around about what was coming. Maya Chun, a junior here at Jefferson Valley, has volunteered to help with facility maintenance during the formal. This kind of selfless service is exactly what makes our school community special. The applause that followed was scattered and awkward. Maya sat frozen in her seat, feeling the weight of hundreds of stares. She could see Brittany 3 rows ahead, her shoulders shaking with barely contained laughter. "Maya, would you like to stand and be recognized?" Principal Martinez asked, shielding his eyes as he scanned the auditorium. This was the moment. Maya could feel every person in the room waiting to see what she would do. She could stand up, accept the recognition, and cement her role as the girl who cleaned bathrooms. She could sink deeper into her seat and hope it would all blow over, or she could do something else entirely. Maya stood up slowly. The auditorium fell silent as all eyes focused on her. She could see Brittany turning in her seat, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. "Actually, Principal Martinez," Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the space, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." The smile on Brittany's face faltered slightly. "I never volunteered for bathroom maintenance," Maya continued, her voice growing stronger. "But I do appreciate the opportunity to clarify that in front of everyone." A murmur ran through the crowd. Principal Martinez looked confused, consulting the papers in his hand. "I'm sorry, Maya, but I have documentation here. "I'm sure you do," Maya said, her eyes finding Brittany across the rows of seats. "But sometimes documentation doesn't tell the whole story." What happened next would depend entirely on how far Maya was willing to go. And for the first time in weeks, she felt like she was the one in control. The auditorium erupted in whispers and murmurs as Principal Martinez shuffled through his papers, clearly flustered by this unexpected turn of events. Maya remained standing, her heart pounding but her voice steady. "Maya, I'm not sure I understand," Principal Martinez said, adjusting his glasses. According to the information I received from Brittany Walsh, you expressed enthusiasm about contributing to the formal in this capacity. Maya felt the moment crystallizing around her. This was it, the point of no return. She could back down. Now apologize for the confusion and accept her fate. Or she could expose the truth and face whatever consequences came with it. Principal Martinez, with all due respect, I was never asked if I wanted to volunteer. I was told that I should clean the bathrooms because I can't afford to attend the formal as a guest. The whispers grew louder. Maya could see teachers exchanging concerned glances along the sides of the auditorium. Brittany had gone pale, her confident smirk replaced by something approaching panic. That's a very serious accusation, Maya," Principal Martinez said slowly. "Are you saying that another student made inappropriate comments about your financial situation?" Before Maya could respond, Brittany shot to her feet. "That's not what happened at all," she protested, her voice hitting a higher pitch than usual. "Maya, why are you lying? You came to our table and we were just trying to help you find a way to participate in school activities." Tyler and Jessica flanked Brittany, nodding vigorously. "She's totally twisting what happened," Jessica added. "We were being nice to her." Maya looked around the auditorium, hundreds of faces staring back at her. Some looked skeptical, others curious, and a few, including Derek, looked supportive. She realized that this moment would define not just how the rest of her high school experience went, but how she saw herself. "There were witnesses," Maya said simply. "Lots of them. People recorded it on their phones." The silence that followed was deafening. Principal Martinez looked around the auditorium with new understanding dawning on his face. "I think," he said carefully, "that we need to continue this conversation in my office. Maya, Brittany, Tyler, Jessica, please see me immediately after this assembly. Everyone else, let's move on to our next item." As Principal Martinez attempted to regain control of the assembly, Maya sat back down. Her legs felt shaky, but there was also something else, a feeling she hadn't experienced in months: relief. She'd finally stopped running from the confrontation. The assembly dragged on for another 20 minutes, covering upcoming events and academic achievements, but Maya barely heard any of it. She was too busy processing what had just happened and preparing for what was coming next. When the final bell rang and students began filing out, Maya noticed the look she was getting had changed. There was less pity now, replaced by curiosity, and something that might have been respect. Derek caught her eye and gave her a subtle thumbs up before disappearing into the crowd. The walk to Principal Martinez's office felt like the longest journey of Maya's life. Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica were already there when she arrived, huddled together on one side of the small waiting area outside the principal's door. They looked like a war council planning their defense strategy. "Maya," Brittany hissed as she walked in, "what do you think you're doing? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you're causing?" "I'm telling the truth," Maya replied quietly. "The truth?" Tyler scoffed. "You're making us look like monsters because you can't handle a little teasing." "A little teasing?" Maya's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath it. "You humiliated me in front of half the school and then lied to the principal about it." Before the argument could escalate further, Principal Martinez's door opened. "All four of you, please come in." His office was cramped and cluttered with educational posters and framed photos of graduating classes. Maya had only been there once before, during her scholarship interview 2 years ago. The memory of that day, full of hope and nervousness, felt like it belonged to a different person. "Have a seat," Principal Martinez said, gesturing to the 4 chairs arranged in front of his desk. "I want to get to the bottom of what happened, and I want everyone to be completely honest." Brittany immediately launched into her version of events, painting herself and her friends as well-meaning students who had simply tried to help Maya find a way to participate in school activities. According to her story, Maya had misinterpreted their kindness and was now trying to cause trouble out of embarrassment. She was convincing, Maya had to admit. Brittany had always been good with adults, knowing exactly how to present herself as the responsible, mature student leader. Tyler and Jessica backed up her account, adding details about how they'd only wanted to help Maya feel included. They, made it sound like a tragic misunderstanding rather than deliberate cruelty. When they finished, Principal Martinez turned to Maya. "And your version of events?" Maya took a deep breath. "They approached me in the cafeteria and suggested I clean the bathrooms at the formal because I couldn't afford to attend as a guest. They said it would be honest work and that I seemed like I'd be good at that sort of thing. There were dozens of witnesses, and at least 3 people were recording with their phones." "That's a complete distortion of what happened," Brittany protested. "She's making us sound like bullies. Aren't you?" Maya asked, turning to face her directly. "What would you call it when you target someone because of their financial situation? When you try to humiliate them in public? When you lie to authority figures to get them in trouble?" For the first time, Brittany seemed at a loss for words. Tyler jumped in to fill the silence. "Look, maybe there was some miscommunication, but Maya's blowing this way out of proportion. We're not bullies, we're just regular students trying to get along." Principal Martinez leaned back in his chair, studying all 4 faces carefully. "I'm going to be conducting some additional investigation into this matter. I'll be speaking with other students who were present, and yes, I'll be asking to see any video footage that might exist." Maya felt a surge of vindication, but also nervousness. She'd crossed a line today, and there would be consequences. She just wasn't sure what they would be yet. In the meantime, Principal Martinez continued, "I want to make something very clear. If I find evidence that any student has been targeting another student based on their economic background or any other factor, there will be serious disciplinary action. Bullying in any form is not tolerated at Jefferson Valley High." He paused, looking directly at Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica. "And if I find evidence that anyone has attempted to manipulate school officials or misrepresent facts, that will also result in consequences." The 3 exchanged worried glances. This was clearly not how they'd expected the meeting to go. "For now, Maya, you are obviously not required to perform any maintenance duties at the formal. That was based on false information." Principal Martinez made a note on his desk pad. "I'll be announcing the correction at tomorrow's morning assembly." As they filed out of the office, Maya could feel the shift in dynamics. Brittany's group was no longer the confident trio that had entered. They were rattled, defensive, and for the first time, vulnerable. But Maya knew this was far from over. She'd won this battle, but the war was just beginning. Brittany Walsh wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. As Maya walked toward her next class, she thought about Master Kim's words about anger making people sloppy and vulnerable. Maybe he was right. But sometimes she was learning. A little controlled anger could also make you brave. What she didn't know was that 3 blocks away, Brittany was already making phone calls, mobilizing her network of friends and allies. The public humiliation Maya had just delivered would not go unanswered. That the real test was still coming. The next morning's assembly brought a brief moment of vindication for Maya. Principal Martinez's public correction was concise but clear. Maya Chun had never volunteered for maintenance duties, and the previous announcement had been based on incorrect information. The apology felt good, but Maya could sense the undercurrents of tension rippling through the student body. What she didn't anticipate was how quickly Brittany would regroup and launch her counterattack. It started during 3rd period calculus. Maya was working through a particularly complex equation when her phone buzzed with a notification, then another, and another. By the time she managed to discreetly check her screen under her desk, she had 17 notifications from Instagram. Her stomach dropped as she opened the app. Someone had created a fake account using her name and photos scraped from her limited social media presence. The account was filled with fabricated posts about being jealous of other students, desperate for attention, and willing to lie to get ahead. The bio read, "Poor girl trying to bring down successful students because I can't afford their lifestyle." But that wasn't the worst part. The account had somehow gained over 300 followers in less than 2 hours, and the comments were brutal. Students from Jefferson Valley and neighboring schools were sharing the posts, adding their own cruel commentary about Maya's appearance, her family's financial situation, and her character. Maya's hands trembled as she scrolled through the feed. This wasn't just cyberbullying. It was character assassination on a digital scale that could follow her for years. "Miss Chun, is there something more interesting than derivatives on your phone?" Maya looked up to find Mrs. Patterson staring at her with raised eyebrows. The entire class had turned to look at her, and she could see some students smirking as they glanced between their own phones and Maya's face. "No ma'am, sorry." Maya put her phone away, but the damage was done. She could feel the whispers starting, could see other students checking their phones and looking at her with new expressions, some pitying, others amused, and a few openly hostile. The rest of the morning was a nightmare. Between classes, Maya overheard fragments of conversations that made her blood run cold. Students were talking about the fake account as if it were real, discussing Maya's confession posts about lying to get attention and her jealousy of more successful students. By lunch, the fake account had over 500 followers, and the posts were being shared across multiple platforms. Maya found herself completely isolated in the cafeteria, sitting alone at a table while conversations stopped. Whenever she walked by she was picking at her sandwich when Derek approached, looking genuinely concerned. "Maya, I'm really sorry about what's happening online," he said, sitting across from her. "This is completely out of line." "You know it's fake?" Maya asked, surprised by the relief in her own voice. "Of course it's fake. Anyone who knows you would know that." Derek pulled out his phone. "I've reported the account on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm getting other people to do the same. This kind of thing is against their terms of service." Maya felt a small spark of hope. "Do you think it will actually get taken down?" "Eventually, yeah. But Derek hesitated. "The damage might already be done. This stuff spreads fast and people don't always check if something's real before they share it." As if to prove his point, Maya noticed a group of sophomore girls at a nearby table looking at their phones and then staring at her with obvious disgust. One of them made a comment that caused the others to burst into laughter. "I can't believe this is happening," Maya said quietly. "We're going to figure out who did this," Derek said firmly. "And when we do, they're going to face serious consequences." Maya appreciated Derek's support, but she already knew who was behind it. The timing was too perfect, the execution too sophisticated for this to be random harassment. This had Brittany's fingerprints all over it. The afternoon got worse. Maya's phone buzzed constantly with notifications, friend requests from strangers, comments on her real social media accounts, and direct messages ranging from fake sympathy to outright threats. Several teachers had clearly heard about the online situation, giving Maya concerned looks and speaking to her in the overly gentle tones usually reserved for crisis situations. By the time school ended, Maya felt like she was drowning. The fake account now had over 800 followers, and the posts had been screenshotted and shared so widely that taking down the original account might not even matter anymore. She was walking toward the bus when she heard footsteps behind her. Maya turned to find Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica approaching, their expressions a mix of false concern and barely concealed satisfaction. "Maya, we heard about what's happening online," Brittany said, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. "It's just terrible that someone would create fake accounts to make you look bad." "Really terrible," Jessica agreed, though her eyes were sparkling with amusement. Tyler nodded gravely. "You should probably be more careful about what you post online. People can take things out of context so easily." Maya stared at them, understanding the game they were playing. They were publicly offering sympathy while privately gloating, establishing plausible deniability while making it clear they were responsible. "Thanks for your concern," Maya said evenly. "I'm sure whoever did this will be found out soon enough." "Oh, I hope so," Brittany said. "This kind of thing really damages the reputation of our whole school. I mean, when students start making up stories and causing drama, it reflects poorly on all of us." The message was clear: back down or things would get worse. "You know what's interesting?" Maya said, her voice remaining calm despite the rage building inside her. "According to the timestamps, these fake posts started appearing right after our meeting with Principal Martinez yesterday." "What a coincidence." Brittany's smile faltered slightly. "Coincidences happen all the time." "They do," Maya agreed. "Just like it's a coincidence that the person who created the fake account seemed to know so much about my personal life. Details that only someone who'd been paying very close attention would know." Tyler stepped forward, his expression less friendly now. "Are you accusing us of something?" Maya looked at each of them in turn. These three had spent months making her life miserable, and now they'd escalated to a level that could affect her future, college applications, job prospects, relationships. The fake posts would exist in screenshots forever, even if the account got taken down. "I'm not accusing anyone of anything," Maya said. "I'm just making observations." "Well, maybe you should focus on damage control instead of making more wild accusations," Jessica said with a sneer. "This whole victim act is getting old." That was the moment something snapped inside Maya. For months, she'd absorbed their cruelty, convinced herself that staying quiet was the mature approach. She'd let them chip away at her self-respect piece by piece, telling herself that high school was temporary and she just needed to survive it. But this wasn't about survival anymore. This was about who she was going to let herself become. "You know what's getting old?" Maya said, her voice dropping to a dangerously quiet level. "Bullies who think they're untouchable because their parents have money." Brittany's facade finally cracked completely. "Excuse me." "You heard me." Maya stepped closer, and for the first time, she saw something unexpected in Brittany's eyes: uncertainty. "You've spent months trying to break me down because you thought I was weak. Because you thought I'd just take whatever you dished out." "Maya, I think you need to calm down," Tyler said. But there was something in his voice that hadn't been there before, a note of caution. "I am calm," Maya replied, and it was true. All the anger, all the frustration of the past months was crystallizing into something focused and controlled. "I'm calmer than I've been in a long time." The three exchanged glances, clearly unsure how to handle this version of Maya. She wasn't crying, wasn't backing down, and wasn't giving them the reaction they expected. "Let me make something very clear," Maya continued. "I'm done being your victim. I'm done letting you think you can destroy my life for entertainment. And I'm especially done pretending that I can't defend myself. What's that supposed to mean?" Brittany demanded, but her voice had lost its usual confidence. Maya smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. "I guess you'll find out." As she walked away toward the bus, Maya could feel them watching her. The old Maya would have been terrified by what she'd just done, worried about the consequences of standing up to them so directly. But the old Maya had been living in fear. And Maya was discovering that she was tired of being afraid. The weekend provided Maya with a temporary escape from the digital nightmare that her school life had become. The fake social media accounts had been reported by dozens of students and were finally taken down by Saturday afternoon. But the screenshots continued circulating like a virus that had already infected the host. Maya spent Saturday morning at Master Kim's dojang, channeling her frustration into her training with an intensity that surprised even her. She executed her forms with precision that bordered on aggression, each movement sharp and controlled. "Your kicks have power today," Master Kim observed as Maya finished a particularly demanding sequence. But power without purpose is just destruction. Maya paused, catching her breath. What if destruction is the purpose? Master Kim studied her face carefully. Is that what you believe? Maya considered the question as she grabbed her water bottle. For months, she'd been the perfect victim, passive, accepting, trying to handle everything with dignity and grace. But where had that gotten her? More abuse, more humiliation, and now a digital assassination that could follow her for years. Sometimes people don't leave you any other choice, she said finally. There is always a choice, Master Kim replied. The question is whether you choose to be controlled by your anger or to control your anger. What's the difference? Master Kim smiled slightly. One makes you powerful, the other makes you reckless. The lesson stuck with Maya as she went through the rest of her weekend routine. She helped her mother with household chores, caught up on homework, and tried to ignore the constant ping of notifications on her phone. But by Sunday evening, she'd made a decision about how she was going to handle Monday. She wasn't going to hide anymore. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, matching Maya's mood as she walked through the halls of Jefferson Valley High. The weekend had given some students time to move on to other gossip, but Maya could still feel the stares and hear the whispered conversations that stopped when she passed. Her first 3 classes passed without incident, but Maya knew the calm wouldn't last. Brittany and her friends had been suspiciously absent from their usual harassment, which meant they were probably planning something bigger. She found out during lunch period. Maya was sitting alone at her usual table when she noticed an unusual amount of activity near the main entrance to the cafeteria. Students were gathering, phones were coming out, and there was an excited energy in the air that meant something was about to happen. Then she saw them. Brittany, Tyler, and Jessica were making their way through the cafeteria with what looked like a maintenance cart, complete with cleaning supplies, rubber gloves, and a mop bucket. They were heading directly toward Maya's table. The cafeteria gradually fell silent as students realized what was happening. This wasn't just another casual confrontation. This was a public spectacle designed to humiliate Maya in front of the entire school. "Excuse me," Brittany announced. Loudly as they approached Maya's table, "We brought you some work supplies." Tyler dramatically placed the mop bucket next to Maya's chair, while Jessica laid out rubber gloves and cleaning sprays on the table. The cafeteria was now completely silent except for the sound of phone cameras clicking and recording. "Since you're so interested in honest work," Jessica said with a smirk, "we thought we'd help you practice for your real calling." Several students laughed nervously. Others looked uncomfortable but didn't intervene. Maya could see Derek across the cafeteria starting to stand up, but she caught his eye and shook her head slightly. This was her fight now. Maya looked down at the cleaning supplies, then up at the 3 faces staring at her with triumphant satisfaction. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching, waiting to see if she would break down, fight back, or simply run away. Instead, she stood up slowly and smiled. "You know what?" Maya said, her voice carrying clearly through the silent cafeteria. "You're absolutely right." Brittany's expression shifted from triumph to confusion. This wasn't the reaction she'd expected. Maya picked up the rubber gloves and examined them thoughtfully. "These are actually pretty good quality. Thank you for thinking of me." The confusion on Brittany's face deepened. Tyler and Jessica exchanged uncertain glances. "I mean, you 3 obviously know a lot about cleaning," Maya continued conversationally. "After all, you've been trying to clean up your reputation ever since Principal Martinez started his investigation." A few students snickered at that, and Maya could see Brittany's jaw tighten. "But here's the thing about cleaning," Maya said, setting the gloves back down on the table. "Sometimes you have to get rid of the real trash before you can make anything truly clean." The temperature in the cafeteria seemed to drop several degrees. Students were no longer just watching, they were riveted. What's that supposed to mean? Tyler demanded, stepping closer to Maya's table. Maya looked at him calmly. It means that some people think they can treat others like garbage just because they have money. They think they're untouchable because their parents donate to the school, or because they're popular on social media. You need to watch your mouth, Jessica hissed. Or what? Maya asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. You'll create more fake accounts, spread more lies, try to destroy my reputation even more than you already have. Brittany had gone pale, clearly, realizing that Maya was no longer playing by the rules of their previous encounters. You have no idea who you're messing with, Brittany said, her voice low and threatening. My family has connections at this school that you couldn't even imagine. I could make your life so miserable that you'd beg to transfer somewhere else. Maya nodded thoughtfully. Your family does have a lot of influence. Your dad's on the school board, your mom runs the PTA, and your uncle owns half the businesses in town. She paused. But you know what they don't have? What? Brittany snapped. They don't have a daughter with good character. The words hit like a physical blow. Several students gasped audibly, and Maya could see phones being held higher to catch every word. Brittany's face flushed red with rage. You little... Careful, Maya interrupted smoothly. We're being recorded. For a moment, the entire cafeteria held its breath. Brittany looked like she was about to explode. Tyler's hands were clenched into fists, and Jessica was practically vibrating with anger. Then Tyler made the mistake Maya had been hoping for. You know what? I'm sick of listening to this trash. He snarled, reaching out to grab Maya's shoulder roughly. The moment his hand made contact, everything changed. Maya moved with a speed and precision that shocked everyone watching. She caught Tyler's wrist, twisted smoothly, and suddenly he was bent over at an awkward angle with his arm trapped behind his back. The entire movement took less than 2 seconds. Don't touch me, Maya said quietly, but her voice carried through. The silent cafeteria like a gunshot. Tyler struggled against her grip, but Maya's hold was absolutely secure. Years of training had built strength in her small frame that none of them had anticipated. Let him go. Jessica shrieked, but she made no move to intervene physically. When he apologizes, Maya said calmly, and when all three of you understand that I'm not your victim anymore. The cafeteria was in complete shock. Students were standing on chairs to get better views. Phones were recording from every angle, and even some teachers had appeared in the doorway to see what was happening. Brittany stared at Maya in disbelief. How did you? 8 years of taekwondo, Maya replied simply. I'm a black belt. Did you really think I couldn't defend myself? The revelation sent a ripple of amazement through the crowd. The quiet scholarship girl they'd been watching get bullied for months was apparently a trained martial artist who had been choosing not to fight back. Now, Maya continued, maintaining her grip on Tyler's wrist, here's what's going to happen. You're going to clean up this mess you made with your little performance art piece. You're going to stop harassing me. And you're going to understand that if you or anyone else tries to put their hands on me again, the response won't be nearly as gentle as this one. Tyler was breathing hard, clearly in discomfort, but not real pain. Maya had the control to hurt him seriously if she wanted to. And everyone in the room could sense that restraint. Okay, Tyler gasped. I'm sorry, just let me go. Maya released him immediately, stepping back with her hands at her sides. Tyler straightened up, rubbing his wrist and staring at her with a mixture of anger and newfound wariness. The silence in the cafeteria was deafening. 300 students had just watched the school's most notorious bullies get completely turned around by their favorite target. And Maya Chun was just getting started. The aftermath of the cafeteria confrontation spread through Jefferson Valley High like wildfire. By the end of lunch period, videos of Maya's takedown were circulating on every social media platform, racking up thousands of views and shares. The quiet scholarship girl had become an overnight sensation, but not in the way she'd ever expected. Maya spent the rest of the afternoon in Principal Martinez's office, along with Tyler, who sat nursing his pride more than his wrist. Brittany and Jessica had mysteriously disappeared after the incident, claiming they needed to see the school nurse for emotional distress. "Maya, I have to ask," Principal Martinez said, leaning back in his chair. "Why didn't you mention your martial arts background when we discussed the bullying situation last week?" Maya considered the question carefully. "Because I was trying to handle things without violence. My instructor always taught me that martial arts should be a last resort." "And you felt this was a last resort?" "He grabbed me," Maya said simply. "I defended myself." Principal Martinez nodded slowly. "The video footage supports that." Tyler clearly initiated physical contact. He turned to Tyler, who was slumped in his chair looking thoroughly defeated. "Mr. Morrison, you're looking at a 3-day suspension for assault." Tyler's head snapped up. "Assault? I barely touched her." "You put your hands on another student in an aggressive manner," Principal Martinez replied firmly. "That's assault, according to school policy, regardless of the outcome." Maya watched Tyler's face cycle through anger, disbelief, and finally resignation. For someone who had spent months dishing out consequences to others, facing them himself was clearly a foreign experience. "What about Maya?" Tyler asked. "She hurt me." "Miss Chun acted in self-defense using reasonable force," Principal Martinez said. "She controlled the situation without causing injury and released you immediately when you apologize. If anything, she showed remarkable restraint." The irony wasn't lost on Maya. Months of psychological torture had been ignored or minimized. But one moment of self-defense had finally gotten the administration's attention. However, Principal Martinez continued, looking at Maya. "I do need to understand why you didn't trust the school to handle this situation through proper channels." Maya met his gaze steadily. "With respect, sir, I tried proper channels. I reported incidents to teachers, I documented harassment, and I even came to you directly last week. But until 30 seconds of video went viral, nothing really changed." Principal Martinez looked uncomfortable, clearly recognizing the truth in her words. "You make a valid point. Perhaps we need to examine our response protocols more carefully." When Maya finally left the principal's office, she found Derek waiting in the hallway with a grin that could have powered the school's lighting system. "Maya Chun, martial arts master," he said as she approached. "I have to admit, that was not how I saw this situation resolving." Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "It wasn't supposed to happen like that. Are you kidding? It was perfect." Tyler's been pushing people around for years, and nobody's ever stood up to him like that. Derek pulled out his phone. "The video's up to 50,000 views already. You're famous." Maya's stomach lurched. 50,000? And climbing. Look at these comments. Derek scrolled through his screen. "Everyone's calling you a hero." "Girl." "Boss, justice served." Finally someone stood up to those bullies. It's all positive. While Derek was reading comments, Maya noticed something else. Students in the hallway were looking at her differently. Instead of avoiding eye contact or staring with pity, they were giving her nods of approval, thumbs up, and even a few respectful waves. "This is surreal," Maya muttered. "This is justice," Derek corrected. "You just did what half the school has wanted to do for years." The rest of the week brought a series of unexpected developments. Tyler's suspension became the talk of the school, especially when it came out that his parents had threatened to sue the district before backing down after reviewing the video evidence. Brittany and Jessica, meanwhile, seemed to have gone into hiding. They attended classes but avoided the cafeteria and common areas, clearly shaken by how quickly their social dominance had crumbled. But the most surprising change was in how other students treated Maya. The viral video had transformed her from an object of pity into something approaching a folk hero. Students who had never spoken to her before were approaching with stories of their own encounters with Brittany's group, thanking Maya for finally standing up to them. Sarah Martinez, a sophomore who had been one of Brittany's previous targets, found Maya at her locker on Thursday morning. "I just wanted to say thank you," Sarah said quietly. "Last year, they made my life hell because I couldn't afford the same clothes they wore. I ended up switching schools just to get away from them." Maya felt a pang of recognition. "I'm sorry that happened to you. You don't understand," Sarah continued. "I transferred back this semester because I heard things had gotten better. But seeing what they were doing to you, I was getting ready to leave again, until Monday happened. You don't have to thank me for that." "Yes, I do," Sarah said firmly. "Because you showed everyone that they're not untouchable, that someone can fight back and win." Similar conversations happened throughout the week. Maya realized that Brittany's group had been terrorizing students for years, using their social status and family connections as shields, while they systematically destroyed anyone they perceived as different or vulnerable. Friday brought another unexpected visitor to Maya's locker. She turned to find Brittany standing alone, looking smaller somehow than she had just a week earlier. "Can we talk?" Brittany asked, her usual confidence replaced by something that might have been genuine nervousness. Maya studied her former tormentor's face. "What do you want, Brittany?" "I want to apologize." The words were so unexpected that Maya almost didn't believe she'd heard them correctly. "Excuse me." "I said I want to apologize," Brittany repeated, though she couldn't quite meet Maya's eyes. "For everything. The cafeteria thing, the fake social media accounts, all of it." Maya waited, sensing there was more coming. "My parents saw the video," Brittany continued. "My dad's been getting calls from other school board members, and my mom's friends in the PTA are asking questions about my behavior." She finally looked up at Maya. "They're threatening to send me to boarding school if I don't repair my reputation." There it was. Not genuine remorse, but fear of consequences. "So you want me to help you fix your image problem," Maya said. "I want us to move on," Brittany said carefully. "Put this whole thing behind us." Maya considered the offer. Part of her was tempted. It would be easier to accept the apology and go back to being invisible. But she thought about Sarah Martinez, about Derek's support, about all the students who had thanked her for finally standing up. "Here's the thing, Brittany," Maya said finally. "I don't think you're sorry for what you did. I think you're sorry you got caught." Brittany's carefully composed expression flickered. "That's not. If you want forgiveness, you need to start by making amends to everyone you've hurt, not just me. Sarah Martinez, the kids you targeted before me, everyone whose lives you made miserable because you thought it was fun." Brittany's face hardened slightly. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. You spent years thinking you could treat people like garbage with no consequences. One viral video doesn't erase all of that." "So what, you're going to hold this over my head forever?" Maya shook her head. "I'm not holding anything over anyone's head. I'm just not going to pretend that a sacred apology fixes years of systematic cruelty." Brittany stared at her for a long moment, clearly struggling with the realization that she no longer held any power in this dynamic. "You know what?" Brittany said, her voice regaining some of its old edge. "Maybe I was wrong about you. Maybe you do belong with the rest of us after all." Maya understood the intended insult, that success had made her as callous as her former tormentors. But she also recognized something else in Brittany's words: grudging respect. "The difference," Maya replied calmly, "is that I learned how to fight back without becoming someone I'd be ashamed of." As Brittany walked away, Maya realized that the confrontation had given her something she'd never expected to find at Jefferson Valley High: confidence. Not the artificial confidence that came from putting others down, but the real kind that came from knowing she could handle whatever challenges came her way, The girl who had started the school year invisible and powerless was finishing it as someone who couldn't be ignored or intimidated. And that felt like the best kind of victory of all. 3 weeks after the cafeteria incident, Jefferson Valley High felt like a completely different school. The transformation wasn't just in how people treated Maya, though that had certainly changed, but in the entire social ecosystem that had allowed systematic bullying to flourish unchecked for years. Maya's video had done more than just embarrass 3 popular students. It had sparked conversations among parents, teachers, and administrators about the toxic culture that had been festering beneath the school's polished exterior. The school board implemented new anti-bullying policies with actual teeth, including mandatory reporting protocols and real consequences for harassment. But perhaps the most significant change was in the students themselves. Maya discovered this firsthand when she arrived at school on a rainy Tuesday morning to find a group of underclassmen gathered around her locker. At first, she worried it might be more trouble, but as she approached, she realized they were waiting for her with nervous but determined expressions. "Maya," a thin freshman named Marcus stepped forward. "Can we talk to you about something?" "Sure," Maya said, opening her locker and grabbing her chemistry textbook. "What's up?" "There's this senior, Brad Patterson," Marcus explained. "He's been making some of the freshman guys clean his car after school, saying it's initiation for being allowed to eat in the cafeteria." Maya's jaw tightened. Even with Brittany's group neutralized, other predators were still operating in the shadows. "He threatened to stuff me in a locker if I didn't wash his BMW yesterday," added another freshman, a quiet kid named David, who looked like he'd never lifted anything heavier than a textbook. "Have you reported this to the administration?" Maya asked. The boys exchanged glances. "We tried, but Brad's dad coaches the varsity football team. Everyone just says it's boys being boys, or that we need to toughen up." Maya felt a familiar surge of anger, but this time it was accompanied by something else, a sense of responsibility. Her actions had inspired these kids to speak up, which meant she had an obligation to help them follow through. "Show me," she said simply. That afternoon, Maya followed the freshman boys to the student parking lot behind the school. Sure enough, there was Brad Patterson, a hulking senior with arms like tree trunks, standing next to a gleaming black BMW while 3 terrified-looking 14-year-olds scrubbed his rims with toothbrushes. "Make sure you get all the brake dust," Brad was saying, his voice carrying the casual cruelty Maya remembered from her own tormentors. "If I see even one spot when you're done, you'll be starting over." Maya walked directly over to the group, her footsteps echoing off the concrete. Brad looked up as she approached, his expression shifting from annoyance to recognition to something approaching wariness. Well, Brad said with forced confidence. "If it isn't the Karate Kid herself." "Taekwondo," Maya corrected calmly. "And these boys are done washing your car." Brad laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. "I don't think that's up to you, scholarship girl. This is between me and my little helpers here." "Actually, it's not," Maya replied, pulling out her phone. "Because what you're doing is called extortion. Forcing younger students to perform unpaid labor under threat of violence is a crime." "It's just school tradition," Brad protested, but his voice had lost some of its swagger. "Funny thing about traditions," Maya said, hitting the record button on her phone. "They only continue if people allow them to, and I'm not allowing this one." The 3 freshman boys had stopped cleaning and were watching the exchange with wide eyes. Other students in the parking lot had begun to notice the confrontation and were drifting over to watch. "You think because you got lucky with Tyler Morrison, you can take on anyone?" Brad said, puffing out his chest. "I'm not some preppy rich kid. I actually know how to fight." Maya studied his stance, his posture, the way he held his fists. She'd been training long enough to recognize someone who relied on size and intimidation, rather than actual skill. "I'm sure you do," Maya said pleasantly, But here's the thing, I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to document what happens next. What's that supposed to mean? Maya raised her phone higher, making sure the camera captured both Brad and the freshman boys. It means that everyone watching is going to see exactly what kind of person threatens children to make himself feel powerful. They're going to see. You explained to your father why his coaching career is in jeopardy because his son is a predator. The word predator hit like a physical blow. Several students who had gathered to watch murmured among themselves, and Maya could see other phones coming out to record. "You can't call me that," Brad sputtered. "I never. You forced minors to perform unpaid labor under threat of physical violence," Maya interrupted. "What would you call it?" Brad's face had gone red, and Maya could see the internal struggle playing out. He wanted to lash out, to use his size advantage to intimidate her the way he had the younger boys. But he was also smart enough to realize that attacking her on camera would end his high school career and possibly his future. "This isn't over," he said finally, but the words sounded hollow. "Yes, it is," Maya replied firmly. "And if I hear about you bothering these boys or any other underclassmen, this video goes viral just like the last one. The choice is yours." Brad looked around at the crowd of students watching him, at the phones recording his humiliation, at the 3 freshman boys who were no longer cowering in fear. The power dynamic that had sustained his bullying had completely evaporated. "Whatever," he muttered, getting into his BMW and driving away with squealing tires. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus approached Maya with something approaching awe. "How did you know he wouldn't just fight you anyway?" "Because bullies like Brad are cowards," Maya explained. "They only pick on people they think can't fight back. The moment they face real consequences, they fold." "But what if he comes after us later?" David asked nervously. Maya smiled. "Then you call me. And if I'm not available, you call Derek or Sarah Martinez or any of the other students who've dealt with bullies before. The secret isn't being strong enough to fight everyone yourself. It's building a community where nobody has to fight alone." The weeks that followed proved Maya's point. Word spread about the parking lot confrontation, and Brad Patterson found himself under increased scrutiny from both students and faculty. His bullying of underclassmen stopped entirely, not because he'd suddenly developed empathy, but because the social cost had become too high. More importantly, other students began speaking up about harassment they'd previously endured in silence. Maya found herself becoming an unofficial mediator, helping younger students navigate conflicts and connecting them with resources when situations escalated beyond peer intervention. The experience taught her something Master Kim had been trying to tell her all along. True strength wasn't about being able to defeat any opponent, but about using whatever power you had to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Spring formal arrived with little fanfare. Maya attended with Derek. As friends, wearing a simple but elegant dress her mother had helped her find at a consignment shop. Brittany was there too, notably subdued and accompanied by a date who seemed more interested in his phone than in her company. As Maya watched her former tormentor sitting alone at a corner table while other students danced and laughed, she felt something unexpected, not satisfaction, but pity. Brittany had spent so much energy tearing others down that she'd never learned how to build anything positive for herself. "Penny for your thoughts?" Derek asked as they slowly danced to a song Maya didn't recognize. "Just thinking about how much things have changed," Maya replied. "Any regrets?" Maya considered the question seriously. The confrontation with Tyler had changed her life in ways she never could have anticipated. She was no longer invisible, which came with both benefits and responsibilities she was still learning to navigate. "No regrets," she said finally. "I just wish it hadn't taken so long for me to realize I didn't have to accept being treated badly." "Well," Derek said with a grin, "better late than never. And hey, look at it this way, now you're the person other kids come to when they need help standing up for themselves. That's a pretty good legacy for a high school senior. Maya laughed, realizing he was right. The quiet scholarship girl who had started the year invisible and powerless was ending it as someone others looked to for strength and guidance. As the music played and her classmates celebrated around her, Maya thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. It hadn't been easy, and there had been times when giving up seemed like the only option. But sometimes the most important battles weren't the ones you chose. They were the ones that chose you. And sometimes the greatest victory wasn't defeating your enemies, but discovering that you were stronger than you'd ever imagined. The girl who had once cleaned up other people's messes had learned to clean house in an entirely different way. And Jefferson Valley High was a better place because of it. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe. And turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.